I see the numbers are still climbing here. So we'll just wait another minute.
Is that you in the picture, Dan, behind you?
Well, that's my windshield, if you can see it.
Oh, there it is. I see it.
That's my buddy in front of me.
That's a great picture.
My daughter took it. I don't have the coordination to take a photo while I'm riding.
Probably a good idea.
I think there's coordination and guts involved.
I think so.
Okay, we'll get started. Welcome, everyone. We're final session of the day. Tomorrow, we still have a agency roundup that we're kind of fired up about. So we get to listen to a lot of people talk about the services that they provide in South Dakota. To end the day, we have a very special guest. He's going to talk about finding humor. His name is Dr. Tom Flambeau. And I just want to just briefly, he gave me a big introduction thing, and I'm just going to briefly run through some highlights. No. But I have to know that Tom grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and he found his way to South Dakota through Wyoming. So we know he's really rough around the edges. However, Tom has worked with families, children, civic groups, and big businesses in a variety of roles. He's conducted workshops and trainings for chambers of commerce, colleges, universities, and a variety of professional groups. He's also worked, which kind of interests me too, is that he's also worked with police officers. He assisted in training the DARE officers for 20 years and was a member of the Aberdeen Police Department's Special Response Team as a hostage crisis negotiator. He's also assisted in the training of critical incident teams for law enforcement agencies around the state. Tom was a professional counselor for over 20 years. He has a bachelor's degree in special education, a master's degree in communication disorders and counseling, and a PhD in counseling psychology. So we call him Dr. Tom. He's gotten several alumni awards, which is kind of cool, getting them from your universities that you attended. He was also recognized as a friend of YLF. That award was given to him for all of his years of time and dedication to the delegates of the Youth Leadership Forum. Currently, Tom is retired, but continues to offer workshops and trainings and volunteers with Black Hills State University football and athletic programs as a mental health conditioning coach. He is finishing his book about police officers and lives in Spearfish with his wife, Terry, their two dogs, Murphy and Ozzy, and cat, Miss Kitty. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Tom Flambeau, and thank you for being here. It's all yours.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks. That was great. Thank you. Wow, what a good conference you've all put on. Do I, okay, just technical, because I'm not a technical person. Am I going to put my PowerPoint in? Is that how? Okay. Be prepared, because I'm not sure if I know what the heck I'm doing. Oh, there it is. I got it. It's coming. Anyways, I was, if I can talk and do it at the same time, I'm a guy, so I'm pretty much a one direction guy. Yesterday, I sat in on Karen's session. It was great, tough, but excellent. But, you know, she was talking about being a word Nazi, I think is what she used. And I have to tell you that a friend of mine is he's kind of a financial guy, and a lot of times they don't have a really good sense of humor. But Our last phone call we had was about a week ago, and we get tied up in words. We play with words. And he was saying something, and I said, "What?" You know that one? And we started to giggle. And so he talks a little bit, and then he starts going, "What?" And I decided I'm going to throw a new one in there, and it's that, right? You know how often people say that, right? And our conversation ended in tears. It's 2 words, well, more than 2 words. What? No, it is 2 words. What? Right. And my wife to this day doesn't understand how we can get into the crying with tears giggles. It's amazing. And when Karen was talking about that, I thought of her immediately. And then I have to tell you that Megan and Andrea, hang on. Megan and Andrea, I love their presentation on, there we go, on pizza. And to me, their creativity was great. And there have actually been studies done that kids, even up to college and probably even some adults, learn better if there's humor involved. So hats off to you, Megan and Andrea. That was great. I loved it. Else I took notes on making pizzas. And then Dana's presentation, I don't know if you liked her giggle, but we all know that when we're in the business of human beings, that if we don't have a sense of humor, we're dead. We have to be able to laugh at ourselves, at situations, and sometimes without being too disrespectful, we laugh with and at the people around us. And it's vital to have that. So anyways, my goal today is not to, I'm not going to plan on making you laugh until you cry. That's not my goal. I'm not a comedian, although I do have my I do have my dog Ozzy, who's behind me, and sometimes he snores. And the UPS guy already went by, so he won't start barking. He can hear the UPS guy about 5 blocks away. So he's behind me. He may get up and say something. I'm not sure. My goal is I want you to think about your mindset. Your mindset. This is not a good time to try to find humor, although it's there. And I think if your mindset is set so that things can be funny, you'll find humor. And sometimes it's right under your nose. It's kind of under my nose back here, but I have learned to laugh more now that things are so stressful and terrible, and we're surrounded by pain and suffering and death, and it's tough. I have stopped. I get up in the morning and I watch the news. I only watch it for a few minutes, and I've turned to Leave It to Beaver, and I have found great solace in the wisdom of Ward and June in the beef. And yes, Bev, I did get my Gunsmoke in today. I find there's a lot of great lessons on community policing with Matt Dillon, and that I am anxious to get on the road and start working with officers again and share some Marshall Dillon's wisdom on community policing. So my goal is to make you think about what humor is and how easy it is to find, truly. So with that, we'll get started. Hopefully I keep it on time. So flag me and all that, because you know how I get. But that is a picture. One of my students, when I was teaching a presentation, thought it'd be really funny because we had Halloween Day, and that's what my costume was. It's a whoopee cushion. Thought it'd be really funny to post that picture on Facebook. So that's what we did. So, greetings from the beautiful land of Spearfish. I don't usually like to say I'm living here because people say, actually I had a guy that I saw in Aberdeen when I went back home to see my daughter. He says, "So where are you living now?" I said, "Spearfish." He goes, "You suck." All I said is where I live. Anyways, so I decided to get to the dictionary and try to figure out what humor is. Don't even pay attention to the first one because I don't understand. There's too many big words in there. But the second one, an often temporary state of mind imposed especially by circumstances. a temporarily state of mind. Remember when I said mindset? You have to have that mindset ready to find humor. Don't overplan, just be ready. So what is laughter? Well, I found some quotes. Laughter is the shortest distance between two people. Victor Borga, I think, is also the same guy who said, "Take my wife, please." Yeah. Anyways, laughter, now this is interesting. Laughter is the lightning rod of play and the eroticism of conversation. I have no idea what it means. It just had that word in there, and I thought would make people go, "What?" I don't know if it worked or not, but Will Rogers, get all the laughs, get all the good laughs you can. Being an actor, I'm certainly into that. And then you old farts that are out there, you hippies, fear is the lock and laughter is the key to your heart. Remember that one? Stephen Stills. Yeah. Well, there we are. There's nothing better than watching a bunch of kids laugh. And there's nothing even better when you have in your group somebody who snorts. One of those. You get people going for quite a while. I decided I was working with a bunch of college students. I thought I'm going to tell a dumb story, and I'm going to laugh, and they'll all laugh, and then I'm going to snort and see how long that lasts. Well, it didn't work. I had to have sinus surgery after it was all over, but other than that, I wouldn't recommend it. Some of my favorite pictures. Look at this. Isn't that great? The little kid and the camel. Isn't that great? I mean, and then the minions. If the minions don't make you laugh, they're just. I'd like to have. I don't have any minion dolls. Hopefully, what's behind me is not too much of a. My office has always been an ADHD kid's dream. When I had it in Aberdeen, I had all the Happy Meal toys, and I guess I haven't quite changed a bit. But anyways, we'll keep moving along. The body heals with play. Interesting. The mind heals with laughter, and the spirit heals with joy. And we know that humor, laughter can heal things. We know that. I've worked in the hospital long enough to know that laughter and humor can heal if done right. And it's not for everybody, but we know it can. That's when I thought this was good too. I understand how HR thinks, but was it really necessary to place our coffee with diversity? Huh? Good stuff. It's out there. I always show this to the cops. I know you're with the grammar police, but who's that guy? He's the corrections officer. Sorry. It's there. It's there. It's out there. Okay, so we know that humor and laughter starts with tickling or ticklish spots that make babies laugh. And I don't know if you've seen the video. It's a YouTube video of the little kid. I think they had it on national TV not too long ago, where all dad does is rip the paper, and you hear that little kid laugh. Oh my gosh! If that this is a video that I had. I didn't put the sound in it, but this little kid has a laugh in it, and there's nothing better than a little kid laughing. I want to tell you. In fact, you cannot be in a bad mood very long when you're around little kids. When I started in Aberdeen, I started the daycare or the child development center for the hospital. And I was mad because they wouldn't give me extra staff, and I was working the 6 a.m. to midnight shift. I showed up, and I got into a domestic discussion at home because why do I have to leave so early? And you know how that goes. So I'm pulling into the parking lot. I'm huffing and puffing, throwing stuff in my car. And I sense someone behind me, so I turn around and look. Here's Amber, and Amber she's probably about 4 or 5, and she has these blonde Shirley Temple curls, and she's standing like this. She's got her hands on her fists on her hip, and she said, "Tom, the doctor said, don't breathe through your mouth, breathe through your nose." And then she walked away. And the dad was over there, and he just went, "I lost it. Breathe through your nose and not through your mouth." Anyways, it starts with tickling or ticklish spots that make babies laugh, and any mom knows that when her baby smiles, that's not gas. That's not gas. If your face is right near that baby and the baby's looking at it and the baby starts to laugh, we know it's your face. But we know that smiles and little babies are either the angels telling a joke that most of us didn't get, and it's not gas. So we know, and that's Calvin and Hobbes, and I always thought that was a great picture. Um, the physical capacity to laugh doesn't develop until 3 or 6 months. The first visual pun is underwear on the head, something backward, or a funny face. And if you don't think you have one, wait till your prom or your first date, and then you're going to find it. I know I have somewhere in the house a picture of Reagan with underwear on her head, but I couldn't find it. So all I have is when the rodeo clowns came to Aberdeen or to Laramie for Jubilee Days, they painted Reagan up. But we know that you all have probably pulled that picture out when your kid showed up with his or her date, that you pulled that picture out. It's out there. But 3 to 6 months is what I would almost guess a little earlier than that. All right. Humor. So what is it? Well, it's a connection with your inner child. And so many of us have lost our inner child. Now, some of you, obviously you won't recognize this, but at one of the camps that we did a long time ago, the raisin guys are really, remember the raisin guys? Some of your older, no, you're more seasoned, like fine wine folks out there, that the raisin guys were the best. And this was our attempt. You remember the song, dun, 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 I heard it through the grapevine? That's what we were dancing to. But your inner child allows you to be spontaneous, courageous, stick-to-itiveness, and just be silly. And you can be that way. And let me tell you, it has helped me tremendously to have that, plus my theater background in working with teenagers. That spontaneity, that on the edge of craziness has brought, I can't tell you how many kids out, and it's worked. So it's a connection. So if you've lost your inner kid, go find him or her. It's usually the guys. Guys, yeah, it's not cool to be a little kid, but hey, whatever. All right, what else is it? It's an emotion. And that came because I was at a camp that Northern had for peer helpers. And we'd been there a week, and they had small groups, and they were emotional talks, and everybody come back. And the other advisors and counselors were giving me garbage because they noticed that my group wasn't really tight. And so, aren't you guys talking about? And I said, you don't have to cry and share deeply terrible things to bond. I mean, I'm not going to do that. This isn't, my group isn't a counseling group. That's not what you said this was to be. And so, they kind of say, yeah, but your group needs to, well, okay, now, I don't mean to offend you by this, but this actually came up into my group. I had 6 women and 2 men. And we came back from a large group session, and one of our members, she's now a lawyer, she was from Ipswich, and she came back to the group, and she kind of put her hands on her, her head in her hands, and put her elbows on the ground, and it was on her knees and her elbows, in that position. And everybody's kind of talking, we're tired, and somebody goes, Rena, her name was Rena Blumster, great person. Somebody said, Rena, you look like you're going to fart. Everybody just sat there. And somebody goes, don't you know girls don't fart? Well, we had an RA in the group. You know anything about RAs? RAs have great personalities. And the RA in the group, who's now a teacher in Del Rapids, said, oh, well, let me tell you about women and their bodily functions. I had to stop my group after about 10 minutes and give everybody permission that if they laughed so hard, they'd wet their pants. It was okay. It was hilarious. It was one of the funniest things that I have ever heard in my life. And you know what happened after that? The advisors all noticed that my group was tight. So what did you guys talk about? What did you share? And I told them, and they couldn't believe it. That we can bond. It doesn't always have to be a tragedy. It can be something as personal as bodily functions. And I can tell you, when I think about that moment, I still get tears because it was so funny. So funny. And you don't have to go that far. But understand that humor is an emotion. That was great. Humor is very personal. It's not for everybody. What's funny to you may not be funny to me, and vice versa. And you have to be careful with it. But it is. It's one of those things that some people find Garfield humorous, hilarious, and other people don't. It's a gift, and that came from my dear friend Mike Cutler, who some of you might know, who's out in Idaho, at Idaho State or Boise State. And you know, we were at one of those lock-in weekends for high school kids who were struggling through drugs and alcohol, and there were about 180 kids there. We were locked in at the old Aberdeen Central. I did 3 of those. Anyways, they were great. But first time I met Mike, he's a big man. He had big, long, black, beautiful hair. And he had this T-shirt on that said, hug me, show me no mercy. As a kid growing up in Detroit, I don't recall in any of the books that when we were reading about Native Americans that they wore those kind of shirts. So he was also very popular with kids, and I thought, I gotta meet this guy. So when Sunday came, that was our last day, we all had these little books, and they were kind of like yearbooks. And Mike took mine. Everybody signed everybody else's. Mike took mine, and he took a little extra time to sign it. I thought, what is he writing? So when I got home, I going through, and it said, Flambeau, you're pretty funny for a white guy, Mike. What? So he worked at Northern. He worked at Northern at the time. So I called him. I said, Mike, can we get together? He goes, yeah, come on over. So we went to the Union, and we got a pop, and we sat at one of those booths. So we're like, how many feet from one another? 3, 4 feet? And it turns out he knows music and loves music as much as I do. In fact, he knows a little bit more about music. And we found out that he was teaching for the University of Wyoming's adult education program. I was teaching for the adult education program for the University of Wyoming. We figured that we were both on the same, we were at the Wind River Indian Reservation. We were just probably a building apart. We figured probably either on the same evening or pretty close to the same evening. I had no idea. And that old thing about if we take the time to understand and to know each other, we're more alike than different. Kind of like how Emily was saying that, you know, what saved her was getting to know, having the person get to know you better. You know what I mean? You know, in colleges and universities, retention has to do with the relationship between a student and advisor. And so I get my book and I looked through, I said, all right, Mike, what's this mean? What's this mean? What's this saying? Yeah, I'm pretty funny for a white guy. And he smiles and he says, I wanted to honor you. In my culture, humor is seen as something very sacred. It's seen as something that not everybody has, and I wanted to honor you. It's a gift. I wanted to honor you with that. I can tell you, in the 12 years of Catholic education I had at St. Agatha High School and school, the nuns never referred to my humor as sacred. So I wanted to make sure that Mike and I have become very good friends. It's a gift. I'll take it. I'll take it. That's what humor is. All right. It's also life supporting. We know that it's life supporting. Well, I've sat with very sick kids. In fact, those kids some of them have passed on. And we actually got the giggles about what's going to happen to their trucks or what's going to happen to their little dog or their hamsters. And we actually kind of giggled. Healing is maybe not the right word, but it kind of was. Life supporting. It's good stuff. Now, I was hoping Steve Herr would be in this group somewhere. I don't think he is, Bev. And so I haven't, you know, this is like, I went through the name several times. I don't think he's there. But Steve works, he's usually in this group, I think. And I think he's in Sioux Falls, and he might still be at the tech school there, I think. Well, one Christmas, he thought he's going to send this out. as his family Christmas card. And you can tell they are all very funny people. And yeah, he'd kill me, but he's down in Sioux Falls, so it takes about 4 or 5 hours from here to there. So I can at least escape if I hear he's coming. But I just thought it was great. It was a nicely done piece. But anyways, that's what humor is. You don't have to be joke tellers. I used to tell jokes all the time. Nah, you don't have to do that to incorporate humor. You can surround yourself with humorous things. One of them happens to be, at that time, Grandma's cat. Now, those of you who have pets know what I'm talking about. Now, my pal Ozzy is a lab. And those of you who have labs know exactly, I don't have to say anymore. Labs are nuts. And then I have a little Scotty. Now, my lab is all black and my Scotty's all white. And he can walk underneath Ozzy's leg, under his body. and they both have a great sense of humor. Every morning we play, and they do dumb things. And Ozzy, being the lab that he is, loves water. So yesterday I put the sprinkler out. So what did he do? He immediately went over to it and laid on top of it. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm getting senile, as my father-in-law used to say. I don't want to go to school. I hate school. I want to do anything other. That was Calvin. And it sounds like maybe when you were talking about some of your cases, you may have had a few Calvins here and there. They're just making you better teachers. That's all. That's all. I put this in when I was teaching intro psych at presentation. I put this in my perception chapter. Now, first of all, they wanted to know what Mad Magazine was and who's this guy, right? I just thought it was great. It's there, Mad Magazine. Who knew? Some of you not familiar with it? I think it still might be around. Once talking audible puns become funny. And I thought I saw one on your little slides that were showing up now. I'm not going to even try to do this one because I have tried to do this and it doesn't come out right. So if you're going to try it, say it to yourself. I'm not going to do it because I kind of stumble through it. So anyways, but that's what Dr. Seuss was so popular, because kids love that wordplay, and it gets them to get the giggles. Sometimes you might just say elephant to a kid and he starts giggling because they love the way it sounds. Laughter is important not only because it makes us happy, it also has actual health benefits, and there have been studies on that. And that's because laughter completely engages the body and releases the mind. It connects us to others, and that in itself has a healing effect. Marlo Thomas. Cool, huh? It does. It's very healing. What it does, and besides healing, in medicine, a significant boost. We've seen the common cold. I was going to look him up, and I didn't get a chance to do that. But he wrote the book on the common cold, so we watched the Marx Brothers. Some of you may be too young to know the Marx Brothers, but some of the old black and white movies, I don't even know I think they even started before talkies. And they also watched Candid Camera, which is hard to believe that they had it way back then. But his doctors couldn't believe how quickly he healed up because he laughed a lot. They say people who laugh a lot live longer. At least that's what my mom said. Now get this one, folks. You'll like this one. Laughing 100 times is roughly the equivalent of spending 10 minutes chugging away on a rowing machine. Huh? Would you rather laugh 100 times? 1, 2, 3. There it is. See how easy it is? Or, get this one, or 15 minutes on a stationary bike. I mean, you could do both. Look how healthy you'd be. So what isn't humor? Well, it's not used, unfortunately for some people, it's not used to defense or mask anger, hostility, or prejudice when they get sarcastic. Kids will sometimes, do a nasty put down. No, like, oh, I'm just kidding. No, it still hurts. Believe me, it does. So it's not used for that. It's not used to better oneself. And we, unfortunately, adults do this. We see it. Unfortunately, but that's not humor. That's something else. So where do you find it? Well, it's all over the place. I stopped telling jokes because I started thinking about my family. When I took my first counseling class at Northern, like intro to counseling or something like that, I sat in the back row, and Jan Euro, Dr. Euro was the professor, and she came in. She goes, "Okay, I want each of you to stand up, introduce yourselves, and say, tell us something about yourself." So the first guy was, I believe, Mike McCafferty. Mike says, "Hi, my name's Mike. I'm a recovering alcoholic." Everybody went, "Hi, Mike." Wow, what a friendly class this is. And so they're going all the way through, and yeah, my name's Tina. I was sexually abused as a child. I thought, oh, that's terrible. I wasn't. Hi, my name's Michael, and I was physically beaten by my parents. I thought, ooh, well, I never was, unjustifiably. And then somebody else this, and somebody else. I thought, God, what am I going to say? So I'm the last one. So it comes to me. Hi, I'm Tom, and I'm an Irish Catholic. And the whole class went, Maybe you Irish Catholics in the group know what I'm talking about. See what I mean? Plus, there's Tom, Tim, Treese, Tina, Terry, and Marianne. Mom ran out of T's. We said Tallulah. No, Marianne was born on May 1st, which is Mary's Day. That picture is my dad after he had a laryngectomy. You can see he's got a trach hole in his neck. But he thought it'd be really cool. His two biggest boys were home. He thought it'd be really cool to have a picture that looks like we are a couple of WWF wrestlers, and he's our manager. So, okay. Isn't that great? I mean, come on. You don't need to tell jokes when you got this stuff right under your nose. I know. I'm better looking than my brother anyways. But anyways, yeah, and then we all have those kid pictures. You know, that one that's my mom, this was, I got to take Grandpa out of there. But my mom, I was 5 years old. This is my first Halloween. And I have no idea what I'm supposed to be. I don't know. I was wearing one of Dad's shirts, and Mom painted a mustache and goatee on me. But we all have one of those. And then that's my father-in-law, who's passed on, and he'll do something to me this afternoon. I just know it. But he had a great sense of humor. Great sense of humor. In fact, it was probably edgy. He was a employment service manager in Douglas, Wyoming, and he would be invited to political picnics and stuff like that. When he'd go to a Republican picnic, he had a baseball cap that said, "Don't blame me, I'm Democrat." And he'd wear, he'd go to Democrat, he'd say, "Don't blame me, I'm Republican." He wore orange on St. Patrick's Day because he's O'Neill, but he's an Irish Protestant. And when my family found out that I was marrying an Irishman, they thought it was great until they found out she was an Irish Protestant. And then my grandma, this is how deep this goes. My grandma sends us a letter saying, "Don't you know mixed marriages don't work?" So Terry reads that, and she says, "Do they think you're marrying a black girl?" I said, "Worse. If the black girl was Irish Catholic, they'd love her." That's yeah. We just had 46 years 2 weeks ago. Hold the applause. Hold the applause. Okay, so family. Family is always good for a giggle. I mean, we all have them. We have a strange Uncle Louie, we all have them. They're there, and they get. I mean, you don't have to tell everybody. You can just giggle to yourself. What else? Our relationships. You have to be really careful there. Yeah. It could be dangerous, but you can do it. You can do it. I actually married Terry. There were 3 reasons. We met at the Buckhorn Bar in Laramie, Wyoming. If anybody's been there, it was great. It's a great story. And but she was gorgeous. She was very smart, a lot smarter than I was. And the biggest one, she laughed at all my jokes. She's got a great laugh. Still does. In fact, I'd say something to her and see if I can get her to laugh. But our relationships are full of funny moments, funny things, and we all have them. You can't live with somebody for any period of time and not start giggling about stuff. And you have to be careful. You have to be careful, right? Now this is an interesting one. We had dear friends who passed on. God love them. Ben and Aggie lived in Minneapolis, St. Paul. We loved going to spend the weekend with them. And we happened to be out at dinner. Oh, they were great food connoisseurs. Aggie, not Ben and Aggie, it was Dick and Ann. Ben and Aggie were in Laramie. But Dick and Ann were in the cities, and we went out to a restaurant, and I had this really cool Tommy Bahama shirt on. And I look over, and there's a guy sitting in the booth over there. He's got the same exact shirt I have on. So I'm not going to pass up an opportunity. So I went over, and I kind of gave him grief, and he gave me grief, and someone said, "Well, let's take your picture." And that's our picture. I have no idea who he was. It's right there. It's right there. If your mindset is ready for it, it's always right there. Isn't that cool? Yeah, well, maybe it's just me again. Okay. there was a fundraiser. It was a kind of a hoity-toity thing for Presentation College. It was a fundraiser for student scholarships. And the young man beside me was one of my students, one of the most unique individuals. I loved him dearly. He passed on in a tragic accident last year, left his beautiful wife and four little kids. But you know, it was one of those very staid, formal affairs, and he, seeing the opportunity to make it not so formal, came up behind me and said, "Hey," and someone took a picture. I love to remember him that way, because I just love to remember him that way. This is a very special picture. This is my dear friend Kim, who is my training partner when we were racing bicycles, and she was ranked nationally. She actually had tryouts. She was invited to the Olympic tryouts as a runner, as a triathlete in Switzerland, I believe. She hurt her ankle. She couldn't go. But she was like the queen of what's healthy for you. And look how I caught her. I caught her with one of those hats on. One of those donut hats. She knows I have this too. It's worth a lot of money. But we get the giggles when we see Kim. Kim's a dear friend of mine. She's still in Aberdeen, and I love her dearly. And these are, I had a theater background. The picture on the right is Phyllis. This was a play called Sylvia, which was on Broadway for a while, that Sarah Jessica Parker played Sylvia. It's about an older couple, an old hippie couple that are trying to find what meaning of life, what they have, because they didn't like, the wife was $1 million salesperson, home sales, and so she didn't like it, so she ended up teaching in the city, and then he wasn't sure what he's going to do, so he got a dog. And so I got to play 3 different characters. One of them happened to be Phyllis, and Phyllis was the sorority sister of the wife. And my daughter, when she saw that picture, goes, "Oh my God, Dad, you look like Grandma." What can I say? I did have to learn how to bring, she had rather perky breasts. I had to pull the director didn't like that part, because it can't be around my neck. The one in the middle is a great play by Jeff, Dumb and Dumber Jeff. Jeff, you know what I'm talking about. But this was called Escanaba in the Moonlight. And we all ended up going to Colombia in costume. It was about a family of hunters. And the director wanted us to go to Colombia. It's a little north of Aberdeen, to the Log Cabin restaurant. And I thought, we're going to get our butts kicked, because we're going to walk in costume and look like that. And people are going to think we're making fun of them. Well, we walked in and people just froze. And then they just started eating again. They just thought we kind of came in off the field. But and then the other one is that's from a play called The Sensuous Senator. Loved all these characters. They were great. Anyways, so there they are. Ourselves, we have to laugh at ourselves. If we don't, then I'm fond of saying I have 2 wives, my daughter and my wife. In fact, I said that to the volleyball ladies once, that I can't get too cocky because I have 2 wives. And one of the volleyballers said, "You're a polygamist?" Everybody laughed. Anyways, so sometimes ourselves. Okay, let's keep moving. Finding humor. Does the sound of joy echo in your office? I did a thing, finding humor at the workplace, for the State Department. I think labor was in there, and there were several of them together. And actually, one of the evaluations came back and said, "This was a waste of time. We're not allowed to have humor in my department." That was great. That was great. But is there a certain lightness in your office? Maybe. Laugh your stress, or blow bubbles. One day show up with those. I don't have bubbles. I have. Uh-oh. What'd I do now? Oh my gosh. Oh, there it is. What'd I do? There we go. I don't have bubbles. It's not about me, it's about you. Doodle. Some of you are doodlers. Find the creative juices, and we saw that earlier. Take time for yourself. Spice up your voicemail. That comes from the old days when when we used to have the tapes, I did Cookie Monster. I'd leave Cookie Monster on my answering machine, and people would call to find out what Sesame character was on there. And finally, the nurses called and say, hey, we got a kid in, my office was on pediatrics around the corner. And they'd say, there's a kid in 326 who's not taking his medicine. Can Cookie call him? So I called, hello, this is Cookie. Cookie Monster? Yeah, that's me. And so Cookie would get the kids to take their medicine. Well, then the head nurse found somebody to make a costume, a big blue furry costume with big white googly eyes. And they made a costume for me. So Cookie got to sit with kids as they were doing their chemo and actually got to go down to the emergency room when they had broken bones or stitches or whatever. And Cookie would sit with them. Great fun. Loved it. Anyways. So, from we can find it elsewhere. Now, a lot of people don't know who these guys are, but these are two of my heroes. This is Laurel and Hardy. And my grandma, before she died, she lived to be 103 years old, got into ceramics at one point in her life. And she knew I liked Laurel and Hardy. And she had two statues, ceramic statues. And she said, Tom, I'm going to paint them. What color do you want me to paint them? And I said, paint them as you remember them, Grandma. And so I had two statues. They're downstairs in the man cave. And I had them in my office for all the years that I was doing my practice. And invariably, there'd be somebody walked in that would go, they'd see the two statues and they'd go, are those the Three Stooges? You know, it's like, no. Well, I thought about it one night. I thought, were they including me with those two statues? Because if they did, then yeah, I guess. But do you have kind of a comedian? You know, I'll show you the other comedian, the person that I really enjoy immensely, and that's Edith Ann. Lily Tomlin's from Detroit, and Edith Ann's been always one of my favorite characters. And Edith Ann sits in the big rocking chair, and she always ends her things with, and that's the truth. Well, she has a thing in her book that says, sometimes when I get lost, I go down to Sears. It sounds like she needs an adenoidectomy. I go down to Sears and I tell them I'm lost. And they say my name over and over the loudspeaker. We all need to feel like we matter. I matter to Sears, even though I buy most of my clothes at JCPenney's. She does another one. It's my favorite. Sometimes when I'm taking a bath, I sit over the drain and I let all the water out, and it feels interesting. Edith Ann, the wisdom of. So do you have, think, do I have these people? Now these, I just saw these movies not too long ago. There is no better dance scene anywhere in the world than Napoleon Dynamite. And if you haven't seen it, you got to see it. Napoleon Dynamite is a cult film. It is one of the best ever films, and Cynthia would know that Napoleon Dynamite just looks exactly like Dan Kleberg. And Dan, I think, is actually dressed up and look like that. And then we have the Young Frankenstein. And I actually tried out for that. The director, my favorite director, asked if I tried out because he saw me as Frankenstein, as the monster. When they're doing their dance routine, putting out the Ritz, that one. And then, of course, the Caddyshack, which is classic. That was just on not too long ago. And then one of my all-time faves, when we did Sylvia, one of the parts I got to play was a family therapist whose sexuality was somewhat unknown, I'll say, but that was my costume. We had a costume designer who made a costume exactly like that. I loved it. And then finally, Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase. I mean, if those movies don't make you laugh, come on, right? And I'm sure a lot of you are watching movies since we're kind of quarantined, but you can find humor, certainly in good movies that are not disrespectful or gross or anything like that. They're just pure fun, pure fun. Now, this one I have to share with you. This one, I was giving a talk on customer service in Pierre, and it was all state employees. And I was in the little amphitheater at the Ramcota there, and I was talking, and somebody goes, I'm not going to say it, but you'll get the drift. Someone goes, boom! BS. And I said, no, really. And I start going, no, really, this really did happen. And they all start laughing. Well, what they did, they actually gave me a copy of this, that they played a game called BS Bingo. And what they did is they looked at the program to see what presentations there were, and then thought about what words would be used in those presentations. And they listed them all in the boxes. And then you took this with you and you went to the presentations. And if those persons used those words, you crossed it off. And if you have to go downwards, angle, or whatever, you got to stand up and say BS. I thought it was clever. Watch the next TS conference you'll get. Somebody's going to do this. Okay, I'm wrapping up. I got to fire up here. This is one of my favorite cartoons. Ampicillin 0 to 4, Ritalin 4 to 12, 12 to 18 appetite suppressants. I did have third graders that were on that. 18 to 24 no-dose. Remember those? You college students. 24 to 30, it's now Adderall. 24 to 38 Prozac, 38 to 65 Zantac, and 65 everything else. Hey, up there. Humor. Now here's some of the COVID humor. You remember? Hello, it's me. Is it me you're looking for? There it is. Craziness. Now this is interesting. The emojis that have been used during the COVID time is the guy or the person laughing with tears. Now, sorry for this one, but leave it to firefighters. Social distance if you can smell it. Yeah, okay, fine, whatever. So 6-year-olds laugh an average of 300 times a day. Adults only laugh 15. Be 6 again, folks. It won't hurt you. There you go. There's your mask. Hey, I love you all. I love what you do. You do great work. I don't think I have to. I think I've probably been singing to the choir on this one. Thanks, you guys. This has been a really good conference, and I know they were all worried that it was going to. It flew wonderfully well. I thanks for allowing me to be a part of it and talking about one of my favorite things, and that is just to be able to laugh.
Well, thank you, Tom. Just so everybody knows before you get off, the code word, if you didn't see it in the chat box, the code word is funny. Again, the code word is funny. So we got it taken care of here. Tom, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us and put some humor together for us. Much appreciated after a long day like this.
You're welcome.
So thank you. And Bev, unless you have something to add, we can see everybody tomorrow morning. And tomorrow our session starts at what time? I can't find it.
9 a.m.
9 a.m. again, 9 or 8 Mountain Time.
We'll be wrapped up by noon, right around noon. So I want to add my thanks, Dr. Tom. Always a great way to end the day, making us smile. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, see you all in the morning. Have a good evening.
See ya.